He's a magnificent writer, and I've had the privilege of teaching with him a couple different times for just a few hours at a time. And his book on, it's called The Empire of Liberty, I've got the name off. It's an astonishingly brilliant book. But not quite, doesn't go in great depth to how it is that we could have this magnificent document affirming freedom, the Constitution, one of the greatest documents ever penned by the human hand, and we had slavery and women couldn't vote. That's a tension and duality that we have to live with.
Now, Justice Anthony Kennedy, at this time and today, is the second highest tenured justice on the United States Supreme Court, second only to Justice Antonin Scalia, both of whom were nominated by then President Ronald Reagan. Now, Justice Kennedy is suggesting the duality of the Constitution. And as you all know, the notion of duality suggests two natures resident in one entity. For example, as a Christian, I believe in the dual nature of Jesus Christ. That in Christ there is holy God and holy man. Two entities in one person, two essences in one entity, seemingly diametrically opposed to each other, but still resident in the same entity. Well, Justice Kennedy talks about the tension and duality of the Constitution. That he says, on one hand, we have a magnificent document affirming freedom, and on the other, women couldn't vote. Now, I'm not an attorney, but I've asked several attorneys for their opinion on this, and I say, is this what he is saying in this clip? And I played it to him over and over again. I said, yeah, John, I think that's what he's saying. Well, in fact, Justice Kennedy, the second highest tenured justice on the Supreme Court, should actually be talking about the non-duality of the Constitution in this particular situation, because at no time has the United States Constitution ever prohibited women from voting. There has never been one jot or one tittle of the Constitution that has ever prohibited or suggested the prohibition of women from voting. In fact, in 1790, shortly after the ratification of the Constitution, women in New Jersey could vote for office holders and the like. It wasn't until 1807 that the state of New Jersey precluded women from voting on certain provisions on ballots. And in 1916, a Republican from Montana, Jeanette Rankin, a woman, became the first female member of the House of Representatives 4 years prior to the ratification of the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment, which ended prohibition of female voting across the country. Stopped every state that had prohibited. So, now contrast these examples with the observation of founding father John Adams, when he said, we electors have an important constitutional power placed in our hand. So who is he talking about? Who is he talking about here? Voters. Voters. He's not talking about senior senators with a pedigree from Harvard College, Harvard Law School. He's not talking about tenured Supreme Court justices. He's talking about electors. He's talking about voters. We voters have an important constitutional power placed in our hands. It becomes necessary to every citizen then to be, in some degree, a statesman. We, the people, must become educated. Who's going to hold our elected officials accountable if we do not become educated? The Constitution Institute was founded to lead that educational process. In May of last year, a board of directors stood up the nonprofit domestic corporation incorporated in the state of Indiana, which is the Consitution Institute, and Mike Sodrell is the chairman, former colleague of mine from the 9th District. Now, the mission of the Constitution is preserving the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity by promoting a greater understanding of the United States Constitution and providing an education in the practical application of constitutional principles, thereby producing what John Adams said must be the case, and that is producing citizen statesmen. Now, we're going to harp on this idea of practical application of the Constitution. And in so doing, we will take the advice of founding father Thomas Jefferson, who was where in 1787? Right, not in Philadelphia. So we've learned something here tonight. But on every question, well, you probably didn't learn it. You already knew it. It's just Hollywood didn't know it. On every question of construction, let us carry ourselves back to the time when the Constitution was adopted, recollect the spirit manifested in the base. And instead of trying what meaning may be squeezed out of the text, for example, that the three branches of government are the House, the Senate, and the President, or invented against it, such as it prohibited women from voting at some time, conform to the probable one in which it was passed. Now, there have been other organizations that have been stood up over the years. They're generally headed by individuals who have no practical experience in themselves applying constitutional principles. And as a result of that, my understanding from attendees to their events are we're inspired, we're informed, we're enraged, whatever it is, but after we hear this wonderful presentation, we're still left asking, well, how do we change this? How do we fix this? What is the constitutional remedy? The Constitution Institute is different. Rather than teaching students about the Constitution, we're going to actually teach the Constitution. And let me give you an analogy on this point. Let's say you're out on a long stretch of desert highway. You're 30 miles away from the nearest cell phone tower. You're 150 miles away from the closest gas station, and your engine cuts out, and you limp to the side of the road, and you hit the latch, and you go out and you lift the hood, and you look down in their engine compartment, and you say, okay, I know there's 6 cylinders in there, and there's some oil running around, and I think there's a radiator and an air conditioner. And I can tell you a lot about the car. But would it be better off if you knew about your car, or if you actually knew the car like the back of your hand? How every system operates and how they interoperate among them in order to fix the car. Likewise, with what's going on in Washington, D.C. today, we need to know exactly how, if they're violating the Constitution in government, and remedy the violation, or perhaps even stop it from happening in the first place. Now, how will the Constitution Institute fulfill the mission of producing citizen statesmen? We're going to do it through education. The Constitution Institute will not do a number of things. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of good organizations that, for example, concentrate and do a lot of work on the history of the Constitution. I'm a history buff and I enjoy that, and they do a good job of it. We're not going to concentrate in that area. We're not going to concentrate on the principles that underlay the Constitution. We'll spend a little bit of time discussing theory, but we're not going to spend a lot of time in the theory. And we're not going to concentrate on American history leading up to the Constitution's framing and its ratification. Once again, history is important, and I appreciate that. There are other organizations that do that. What we will do is we will teach the United States Constitution and how to practically apply the principles in that document in order to rightly govern what James Madison referred to as this confederated republic. And as a result, we will produce citizen statesmen. Now, the method that we're going to use is we're going to hold seminars of 7 modules, individual seminars in most cases, of 7 modules. The seminars will be held in areas all throughout the state of Indiana initially. We've been in Maryville, Plainfield, we're going to Seymour, we've been in Warsaw, Evansville, Greencastle, Bloomington. So we're going to initially hold them there. They'll be taught by the president of the Institute, myself initially, but as demand grows, instructors will be trained to teach the Constitution to folks in their respective geographic areas. The modules on the Constitution will be Module 1, an introduction to the Constitution, where we will stress the principles of federalism, enumerated powers, and separation of powers. In Module 2, we will take up the legislature, Article 1. In Module 3, we will tackle the executive. In module, well, we won't actually literally tackle the executive. That's actually against the law, and rightly so. But figuratively speaking, we'll take on the executive. And then in module 4, we'll deal with that mysterious branch of government known as the judiciary. In module 5, we'll do articles 4 through 6 and several of the amendments. In module 6, we'll concentrate on the 10th Amendment. And in module 7, we'll concentrate on the 14th Amendment. If we understand how the 10th Amendment has been neglected over the past several decades, and how the 14th Amendment has been misapplied, especially by the courts over that same time period, nearly that same time period, we'll understand why we're in about 90 to 95% of the problems that we're facing politically today. And then there'll be an additional discussion of other parts of the Bill of Rights as we go through the other modules. The benefits of the education, it'll be live education. You'll be able to ask questions of a former 6-term member of Congress that used this document for 12 years on a daily basis. There'll be hard copy materials that you'll hopefully be able to use in the future. There'll be some theory, but the emphasis will be on application. I'm not a lawyer, as I mentioned, but I worked with lawyers for 12 years. What they told me was, John, you never ask a question that you don't know the answer to. And as a result of your education, you will not only know the right questions to ask, but you will know the right answers that you should be hearing from those questions. Because this training will give you a knowledge and confidence level to engage the government, and especially office holders, because you'll know the questions to ask, you'll know the answers that they better give you. And hopefully at some point, folks will take this one step further, and instead of remaining citizen statesmen, we'll just drop the citizen part off, and they will become statesmen as you run for public office. And then you'll have my assurance that as attendees, you will know more about the United States Constitution than your neighbors, and they will come to you as a result of that. You'll know more than every radio talk show pundit out there, and television talk show pundit, and a vast majority of politicians, including senators and justices of the Supreme Court. Now, what will be the market for this? Well, we're doing introduction sessions like this all over the state. This morning with bullet point 2, I was in Morgan County, and we gave a presentation to the Republican Party of Morgan County that invited me to come and do a presentation in front of their group. We've been in some churches to give this great presentation. Then we're going to go to schools and try to crunch down about 12 hours of seminars into 45 to 50 minutes for public schools and other school settings. But the crux of our education effort will be at seminars sponsored by the Consitution Institute at various venues. And we've already been in contact with folks outside of the state that are interested in the curriculum as well. Now, to give you an example of some of the things that have already taken place, as I mentioned, we've done all of these seminars for the general public, but in December of last year, the Indianapolis Tea Party, TMAC, Greencastle Defenders of Liberty and Whitley County Patriots invited members of the Indiana legislature, and members of the Indiana delegation of the U.S. House of Representatives and Senate, as well as statewide office holders to come and take training in December of this year. We trained folks on the 3rd and 4th. We put all seven modules in a 2-day training format on the 3rd and 4th, and then again on the 10th and 11th. This is an example of some of the folks who attended. So these are some of the state legislators. Here are some of the state senators that attended. Tonight, I'm asking you to join the Constitution Institute. You can learn more at our website. I have a set of business cards that are over here at this table. If you feel free to pick one up. Also, if you want to be informed of our seminars that we'll be holding, we send out emails from time to time. We don't give out email addresses to anybody. We don't sell email addresses. And we don't email very often, but we do inform folks of seminars that we're having. There are a couple of sign-up sheets over here on this table as well. If you would like to receive these emails, just give us your first and last name and your email address So like I said, we'll not bother you, but we will inform you of when we're